So sorry. I don't know if I had my thumb or the microphone or if my phone is damaged when it's got, anyways, so I had to redo this video. This video is going to show some things that was not showed at trial. Basically, there is a case, a federal case against state troopers of federal charges that were filed, that while it may be, some part of it is not relevant, a good portion of it is. It was filed in January 2024, and of course, not only was it not discussed in this trial, the media tried to block anybody sharing that. This is a video of when she was re-indicted in June, I believe June 9th, and so she's re-arrested and she's asking questions. And you heard a portion of this video at trial because they played a portion of it when she was charged, saying basically that, you know, this is a joke, you know, my tail light is cracked and his head was pulverized. They took it out of context, basically. That was their reason for using it. Of course, what she meant was it was ridiculous for them to say she had a small crack on her tail light that could cause such serious injuries, which, of course, PhD experts have now followed that same sentiment. But anyways, that aside, this is the booking. The reason I'm showing the portion of this video is going to tell you exactly what she was indicted on, second-degree murder. And this is important because it does not match what was presented to the jury. And what they presented to the jury, I'm also going to show you. There was some media, the local media, showed the trial, and then once they rested, they did not show the instructions given to the jury. And I don't know why they didn't, but so I don't know how many people out there actually saw the instructions to the jury. But it's not being discussed by the media, which I feel that the media has always been biased towards Karen Read. They have hid the 71-count federal indictment against Massachusetts State Trooper that also includes police officers across the state of Massachusetts and fellow troopers, some of which could have been testifying in this trial because a lot of names were redacted. They, in fact, lied and said that only 2 names weren't redacted. In fact, a bunch of names were redacted. There was only one person that even covered that. And the local Massachusetts people did not. They hid it from the public so that they can taint the jury and keep them all divided, and then claim in their articles and their posts about how the town is actually divided. And I believe a part of the division has to do with how the media hid a lot of things about the corruption and the massive amount of corruption going on with the state troopers, involving police, family members, friends of police, bribery, extortion, falsifying reports, conspiracy, all of those charges. And there's a lot of fellow troopers and officers included, and the media has hid this. And so it's kind of ironic that they try to accuse some blogger of tainting the jury pool by trying to speak up about things that the media wasn't covering, when it in fact is the actual mainstream media who is tainting the jury. And I really think people should speak up against the jury, not just the the media. Don't mess with the jury, please. They did their job. No, I think that the media, people should stand up against the media and hold them accountable for tainting the jury, the jury pool, the public, basically. So here is a little clip of, this is Karen Read. She's being booked on second-degree murder. She's got some questions. And what this officer says, he's explaining to her that she was charged with a higher degree, which is why it's going to Superior Court versus District Court. And her second degree, and he says it clearly, second-degree murder on vehicular manslaughter. Now, if she had beat him to death, or a different type of assault on his body that caused his death, it would have been a completely different statute. She was charged under vehicular homicide that was intentional. Okay, so, and then there, of course, there was, I believe, a lesser charge that, you know, if you felt that because of intoxication she couldn't create the intent, that it was just a negligent accident, that's a different statute charge. This is second-degree intentional homicide by vehicular.
Initially, your arrest was on probable cause out of the district court, okay? So the charges that you were arrested on initially were out of district court. I was still in the district, that's what the agreement was. It was district level charges. Today, grand jury indicted you on these charges, which is second-degree murder, vehicular homicide and
vehicular homicide. Now listen to this. This is after they arrested. These are the instructions that are being given by the judge, and this is after the defense and the prosecutor gave their proposed orders to each other. That was apparently off camera, and apparently the defense, I don't know what kind of arguments they made because it wasn't shown, but what Lally did in the end was absolutely just horrible. And I can imagine that there had to have been at least one jury who had to have been angry. Because how can you, for 8 long weeks, argue with expert witnesses that the defense presented saying that that car didn't cause that injury, and you presented very specific scientific data from a car that she had a collision? We're talking EDR data of a car is extremely scientific. That's almost like DNA type of evidence. And of course, the other accident reconstructionist said there was no data. So that basically, without calling him a liar, call him a liar. The accident reconstructionists hired by the FBI that were PhD, they have the ability, when there's in civil cases, they do criminal and both civil. So if somebody stages a scene, an accident scene, and claims they got an injury, they can go in there and they can say, well, it's not possible that this injury came from such and such. But they can also say when an accident is staged. Okay, so without telling Lally to his face that, you keep coming at me with this glasses and the tailpieces and all this, but I'm telling you, your accident is staged because it's not consistent that tail light or his injuries was caused. And he went into very specific detail. Everything they presented was just not plausible. Okay, so this is what he does. Hear it out. This is what he does in the end.
Charges against Ms. Reed.
Here we go. Incredible.
The Commonwealth has alleged that on January 29, 2022, Ms. Reed did assault and beat John O'Keefe with the intent to murder him, and by such assault and battery did kill and...
That is a completely different type of second-degree murder. As you heard in the officer in the booking video, he specifically said that she was charged with second-degree murder by vehicular homicide. And also notice that he kind of slips up when he says it and almost says something different. Listen, I'm going to play again what he said, and he stumbles over his word because he's reading second-degree murder by vehicular homicide, but there's an M word in there that he almost puts in there. And I don't know if that was he's just had a long day, or did he know something? But hear it out.
district level charges. Today, grand jury indicted you on these charges, which is second-degree murder, vehicular homicide, and
He couldn't even get vehicular homicide, but that's what it was. It was vehicular homicide. Okay, so when you see that throughout the whole trial, he's not only insisting with very specific scientific data that they say that their experts are better than the defenses, and that their experts, when he read that car data, that it proved she had a collision at 24 something miles an hour, and then she ran into him going backwards, and then all the taillight pieces is what caused his death. All of that evidence and effort, and then arguing with experts, the best experts in the world, saying it's not consistent, that basically they're wrong. In the very end, he changes the indictment. How is that even possible? And the media, did you hear one word of this from any of the Boston or Massachusetts media? Did you hear any of the media talking about how he changed his indictment in the end? Now, I have heard some statements about how Massachusetts, but they're more like they're making excuses for him. When the Boston Globe got the documents from the court, it was so heavily redacted, like half pages were just all blacked out, like they think they CIA or something. Okay? Now, there may be some federal investigation stuff that the feds do, monitor stuff like that. So, but the indictment itself should never be hidden from the public. And the indictment was vehicular homicide. So how is it in the very end he changes his complete story? Do you not think that the jury was, at least one of them was angry about that? So here's the thing. In this town, it was widely reported. By the way, Dateline covered this story. Millions reviewed it. Boston magazine covered it. Well early in the stages when she was first arrested. There was a lot of people. It was in the news. And the accusations came out as soon as her indictment. And all those accusations of the third party did come out very soon after she was indicted because of Stephen Scanlon. Stephen Scanlon was the private investigator who happens to be friends with all of them. And he's friends with all the cops. He has FBI connections. He's in the boxing world, which all of them were. He knows all these people, right? And so she does make a comment in here also about he admitted it. Okay, meaning Colin and the Alberts admitted that he was beaten. And there was a comment about vomit, which there was found on him that he had vomited after, this injury. And that Stephen Scanlon could not have known that. And that's the accusation. Nobody's heard from him that, no, I never said that. He hasn't made any public comments. He wouldn't sign an affidavit. But, Yannetti has probably got the message because according to Yannetti, there were messages left for him. So he has to have documented what this guy originally said. But nonetheless, that's when it came out. That's when the third party accusation started. It was because of Stephen Scanlon. He went forward, he made accusations, and then they started investigating. Okay? And so this second degree murder charge came out pretty much after Yannetti had got involved and they were getting investigations that had revealed there was other people bitten by that dog. And so Yannetti, what happened was, despite the fact you have all those protesters and supporters coming from around the globe, people that watched the trial, never heard that blogger, but just watched the trial. It was, in Dateline, it was on Nightline, it was in various news sources, and they watched the trial. And they were so disgusted, they just decided to come out. Like, they were coming from all over the place. So you have this massive amount of people out there. And so, but that doesn't represent Canton. All those people out. Now, there's a lot of, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of Canton people out there. However, the division in that town is heavy. And it has been talked about in media sources. It's been talked about that there's a lot of division in that community. So much so that they won't even, business-wise, they're afraid to, say what side they're on because it's so divided. You just don't want to stir it up. But privately, when people would, talk amongst each other, even they, among their own groups, could not decide. And so that's the atmosphere that Yannetti and Jackson went into. And Yannetti, in the end, before he presented his last three witnesses, said he was not going to present the cop who said he saw Higgins at her tail light for a long period of time with the supervisor when that 42 minutes of footage was missing. To me, I felt like that was a disservice. I think he deluded himself to think, because he basically said he felt that they won. That's what he said to a reporter as he walked by and they were asking him. He left the courthouse one day and I was just flabbergasted. Because they didn't really get that this community is not what all those people out there in front of the courthouse are. There was deep division. And so as one lady said, when a jury represents the community, and if the entire community is divided like that, then that's how the jury's going to be. I mean, it's a pretty good indication. Now, they may have thought, well, once we present everything, then, the division will go away. But the problem with that is that when you have people who are so conservative and they're just they just can't accept, psychologically it would be injuring to think that many people would conspire together in their own neighborhood. That's a hard thing. He was oh, but all the evidence, I know. But this is how it is. And when you have a cop who's willing to not only risk his career, because you know he's going to get backlash. He probably risked his life to come forward and be willing to testify, because they murdered John O'Keefe for whatever reason. And if they're willing to conspire like that, who's to say they wouldn't kill him too? It's dangerous, these people in power. And so, but this cop was willing to testify that he saw Brian Higgins at her car taillight, because he said he never went near it and he didn't call him. If you have some of the jurors who are just not willing to say that all these cops were lying and conspiring together, if you had one cop coming forward and calling them all out, that would have forced the jury to have to choose. That would have forced the jury to accuse a cop. That would have forced the jury to say, see, cops are lying, because they would have had to either A, think that cop is lying, or these cops are lying. I just really think that that cop was an important witness. Then you had other people who were attacked by that dog. When the Alberts testified that there was no incidents of that dog biting anyone. And then you have people come forth, oh no, that dog did bite me. Yeah, he did. I don't know why they're saying he didn't, because yes, they did. You just, anything that they could put on that stand. I showed in a video the witness list for both sides. 71 witnesses were on the original witness list for the defense, and they only called a handful. And they're on a retainer fee, and so that would have took at least 2 more weeks to even call 25% of those witnesses. But they didn't even cross-examine Carrie, who, by the way, all he had to do was ask her, okay, you said there was 4 inches on top of John O'Keefe when you found him, that you dug his head out of the snow, correct? Make her re-say it. And then say, you do realize that Officer Seraph said there was only a light dusting on top of him while there was 6 inches on the snow, which is consistent with what Lucky testified, that there wasn't a body out there at 2:45, and he was in his snowplow equipment with all those lights on, so he's looking for animals in yards to make sure he doesn't hit anything. Okay? And he would have forced that witness to call the cop a liar. Divided, they shall fall. And they were divided. They were contradicting each other. And he didn't touch Carrie. All he had to do was ask Carrie one question. So you said that there was 4 inches of snow on top of him, correct? Make her commit. Not she thought, make her commit to it, right? Make her say it that yes, matter of fact, right? Make her commit. And then, and you dug his head out of the snow, right? And make her commit. And then when she repeats what she had said, say, well, you do realize that Officer Seraph pulled out the testimony and presented to her that he said that there was only a light dusting on top of him. And there was 6 inches of snow on the ground. And then to have the jury look at her expression, right? There were so many contradictions. Get Jen McCabe back on the stand. And have her recommit that she saw her at 12:45. And then present the testimony of Trooper Guarino, who said that she was auto-connected at John's Wi-Fi at 12:36. And present the phone record showing that she was auto-connecting, or whatever record it was, the data that she auto-connected at 12:36, and watch her struggle. He should have recalled some of those witnesses and then put that cop on the stand to testify against Higgins, and then get Higgins back on the stand and say, well, you do realize a fellow cop said he saw you with your supervisor at the taillight, and make him call that cop a liar. Divide them, because they're already divided. Make a cop call another cop a liar in the presence of a jury. And get it planted in the jury's mind. Cops lie. Even the cop said so. You see what I'm saying? It was just so shortcutted. But this Lally in the end, to be allowed to just completely switch gears and go completely against his car EDA, said she had a collision, and all these taillight pieces said she hit him with the car, completely changed the indictment from a vehicular homicide to she beat him to death. And the media is hiding this. Have you heard any of this from the media? I'm begging people, if you're going to be out there protesting, protest the media. Hold them accountable. They tainted this town's jury by hiding all this and still to this day not talking about this. And they hid from the town that 71 charges were filed against 6 state troopers, and in that case was text messages to each other from fellow officers and troopers talking about give them the golden treatment, give them the golden treatment, bribes, that gifts that they offered them, and malicious promise of flunking someone on purpose because he didn't like what so-and-so did. Fellow cop, if you don't do what I want, I'm gonna make your life miserable. Stuff like that. And the fact that fellow cops across the state of Massachusetts were on the receiving end of that falsifying, getting licenses under fraud from state troopers. How dare they hide that? Conspiracy that's statewide. Oh my gosh. And their names are redacted, so how do they even know if some of those troopers and police wasn't testifying in that trial? That's exculpatory evidence I think they have a right to. The media tainted the jury pool to cause that division, hid stuff that they were so biased not to report. And I beg you, please hold them accountable.